Hello there, this is All 24 News, world news program coming to you live from Algiers with me, Karim Fazakri. Coming up next are your headlines. Libya's parliament in Tobruk was stormed by protesters demonstrating against deteriorating living conditions and political deadlock. Just after a day after Moscow withdrew its forces from Snake Island, Ukraine accused Russia on Friday of firing phosphorus bombs on the rocky outcrop in the Black Sea. At least 10 protesters were killed and dozens of others injured when security forces used force against protesters in Omdurman, Sudan, according to the Central Committee of the Sudanese Doctors. The Korean Confederation of Trade Unions holds a mass gathering in the capital Seoul on Saturday to demand improved labor policies and an increased minimum wage. Hello again, those were today's headlines, and first we kick it off. Hundreds of youth protesters demonstrated in Tripoli on Friday, calling for national elections and the end of Libya's transitional period. The Friday's Cry of Youth protest was held after two senior Libyan officials from the country's rival camps failed to reach an agreement on a constitutional framework for elections during 2 days of UN-mediated talks in Geneva this week. There were also similar protests in Benghazi, Misrata, and Tobruk. Still in Libya, Libya's parliament in Tobruk was stormed by protesters demonstrating against deteriorating living conditions and political deadlock. According to media, protesters had managed to enter the building of the parliament and committed acts of vandalism, with some saying the building had been burned. Lebanon hosts a meeting of Arab League foreign ministers. This meeting will serve to prepare for the Arab Summit to be held in Algeria in October. During the meeting, Algerian Foreign Minister Amtal Mamra confirmed that Syria is a founding member of the League of Arab States, that Algeria has no problem with its return. The personal envoy of the United Nations Secretary General for the Sahara, Stefan de Mistura, begins today, Saturday, a new tour that includes occupied Western Sahara and the Kingdom of Morocco. In his second tour in the region since his appointment 9 months ago, succeeding the former German envoy Horst Kohler, who resigned 3 years ago for health reasons. The Spanish House of Representatives adopted a draft proposal calling for Spain's return to its neutral position on Western Sahara and to restore its relations with Algeria. The representative of the Front Polisario Spain, Abdoulaye El Arabi, highlighted that a draft proposal on Spain's foreign policy had been submitted by the parliamentary group of the People's Party. The 13th point concerned the restoration of relations between Spain and Algeria and the respect for Spain's historical position vis-à-vis Western Sahara under international law and United Nations resolutions. Thousands of people took to the street across Spain and Morocco on Friday to protest the deaths of at least 23 people at the border between the Spanish enclave of Melilla and Morocco, amid growing calls for an investigation in Barcelona. Demonstrators, including many from the African diaspora, marched through the center of the city, chanting against racism and colonialism, while in Rabat, demonstrators gathered outside the parliament holding banners. Members of human rights groups and some NGOs demanded the opening of an independent investigation. To the Russia-Ukraine file now. After Moscow withdrew its forces from Snake Island, Ukraine accused Russia on Friday of firing phosphorus bombs on the rocky outcrop in the Black Sea. The commander-in-chief of the Ukrainian army said 2 sorties of Russian Su-30 fighter jets dropping phosphorus bombs were flown over the island from the Crimean Peninsula. Kiev announced Friday that at least 21 people were killed in overnight strikes by strategic bombers on buildings in the Odessa region of southern Ukraine. Accusations denied by Moscow, affirming that the Russian army targeted only munition warehouses. Let's follow the details with Hossein Burkan.
The course of the battles is expanding in Ukraine to include new fronts, as Moscow intensifies its operations in the east to end the Battle of the Donbass. Its missiles target the southern regions, specifically Odessa. Rocket strikes with strategic launches targeting an apartment building near the port of Odessa, killing dozens, according to the Ukrainian authorities.
This is not a single strike, it's not a coincidence. As Russia's media says daily, it's a direct Russian missile strike. It's Russian terror, let's be honest, against our cities, our villages, our people, both adults and children.
Faced with these accusations, the Kremlin denied that the Russian forces targeted the residential building, stressing that Russia is not bombing civilian sites, but only military targets and weapons stores.
The Russian Federation armed forces do not target civilian objects and civilian infrastructure sites in the course of the special military operation. Having said that, they do target munition warehouses, facilities where military vehicles are repaired and equipped, places of concentration and training of mercenaries, foreign mercenaries included.
Moscow also announced its control of an oil refinery in Lysychansk, the second largest in the country, with a production capacity of 16 million barrels per year. On the diplomatic arena, Ukraine witnessed an intense week of activities, especially between Kiev and the European Union. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky received former NATO Secretary General Anders Rov in Kiev, as well as Norwegian Prime Minister Jonas Gahr, who announced a donation of nearly 1 billion euros to Ukraine over 2 years. Zelensky declared also that Ukraine and the European Union are starting a new chapter in their history after the acceptance of his country's candidacy. In the face of fierce fighting in the east and south, Western support for Kyiv with weapons and military equipment continues. The U.S. Department of Defense announced the latest additional security assistance package for Ukraine, military aid worth $820 million, which, according to a Pentagon spokesman, includes additional munition for HIMARS mobile rocket launchers and 2 advanced anti-craft missile systems of the Norwegian-made NASAMS, as well as missiles and air defense tools.
Ukraine has requested that Turkey detain and arrest the Russian-flagged cargo ship carrying a cargo of Ukrainian grain taken from the Russian-occupied port of Berdyansk. The Ukrainian Foreign Ministry officials said the Russian-flagged cargo ship had loaded the fast cargo of some 4,500 tons of grain from Berdyansk, which the officials said belonged to Ukraine. At least 11 protesters were killed and dozens of others injured when security forces used force against protesters in Omdurman, Sudan. According to the Central Committee of the Sudanese Doctors, security forces fired stun grenades and tear gas in an attempt to stop the thousands of protesters from reaching the presidential palace, but they managed to get close to the palace in the nation's capital, Khartoum. Several other cities witnessed protests, including Al-Bara and was Madani. Police said they are looking into a shooting incident that was posted on social media and showed police kicking a demonstrator in the street who later died due to a shot. Police say they will track down the officer responsible for this crime. A 6.3 magnitude earthquake hit the southern Iran Saturday, left at least 5 people killed and 44 injured. People took to the streets as aftershocks continued to jolt the area after the early morning quake. which also damaged the buildings and infrastructure. Meanwhile, rescue teams were deployed near the epicenter in Sayakosh village, which is home to around 300 people in Hormozgan province.
I was asleep when I woke up. I felt something heavy on my body. My kids were screaming. Mommy is certainly dead. Thank God, with the help of my children, the rubble was removed.
The Korean Confederation of Trade Unions held a mass gathering in the capital Seoul on Saturday to demand improved labor policies and an increased minimum wage. The Confederation says around 45,000 people are participating in the demonstration. Authorities are expected to increase security forces, and transport and business disruption remain possible during the rallies. U.S. President Joe Biden acknowledged that there are not enough votes in the Senate to make an exception in the Senate filibuster rules so that Democrats could write abortion protections into law with a simple majority in the chamber. Let's listen.
Congress is going to have to act to codify the Roe into federal law. As I said yesterday, the filibuster should not stand in the way of us being able to do that. But right now, we don't have the votes in the Senate to change the filibuster at the moment.
With airport crowds outpacing those seen in 2019 before the pandemic, the long 4th of July weekend is off to roaring start compared to earlier this week. Friday looked to see fewer travelers encountering delays and cancelled flights. On Thursday, the Transportation Security Administration checked almost 2.4 million passengers at airport checkpoints, which is an increase of 70% over the Friday before the 4th of July in 2019.
We're supposed to be on our way to Mazatlan, Mexico for our graduation trip, but it got canceled without us knowing. And it's empty. I think it's my first time here at LAX, and I heard it was like, oh, it's busy, there's always a lot of people, and I come and I'm like, it's not that bad.
Thousands of Australians participated in a broadcast protest against the U.S. Supreme Court's overturning of women's constitutional right to abortion on Saturday across the nation. About 15,000 women and men marched through Melbourne in protest after the Supreme Court last week overturned the landmark 1973 Roe v. Wade decision, restoring the ability of individual states to ban abortion. And for economy news, let's follow this roundup compiled to us by our own Nabil Khazini.
Following Czech Republic taking over the rotating presidency of the European Council, Prague has vowed to focus largely on the current energy crisis Europe is facing.
Our main objective is how to lead the citizens of the European Union well through this extraordinary crisis situation and make sure that energy is available and affordable, to deal with inflation and maintain economic prosperity, to strengthen Europe's security and the resilience of our institutions.
Czech Republic took EU presidency in a critical situation marked by international conflicts and economic problems. A new report revealed the source of the gas that was supplied to Morocco via Spain. The Spanish newspaper La Vanguardia said that the gas supplied to Morocco from Spain came from the United States. Algeria threatened in April to terminate the contract for transporting gas to Spain if Madrid transported Algerian gas to a third destination, in what was an implicit reference to Morocco. In Mexico, President Andrés Manuel López Obrador inaugurated the partially finished Olmeca oil refinery in Dos Bocas. His administration has been so committed to oil. The leftist leader opposed to private renewable energy scheme and argues the refinery will help Mexico cut a long-standing dependence on foreign gasoline and diesel supplies. According to the International Energy Agency, for the first time the US is supplying more natural gas to Europe than Russia sent by pipelines. Europe is seeking alternatives such as US liquefied natural gas after the Russian Gazprom cut shipments through Nord Stream and stop supplying gas to countries that didn't comply with new payment terms.
Nigeria and Germany agreed to hand back the Benin bronzes which were taken from the royal palace of the Kingdom of Benin and which served as a symbol of colonial Africa. Sofiane Kenturi reports.
A deal was made between Germany and Nigeria on Friday in Berlin that would allow the centuries-old figures known as the Benin bronzes, which were taken from Africa in the 19th century and are now on the exhibit in German museums among other places to be returned.
Today we have reason to celebrate because we have reached a historic agreement. The Benin bronzes are returning home. These pieces are not only magnificent artifacts, they are some of Africa's greatest treasures. But they are also telling a story of colonial violence.
In Europe and North America, ownership issues over items that were stolen during colonial periods have become growing concerns for governments and museums.
I am delighted to be part of this auspicious event, which in my opinion will go down as one of the most important days in the celebration of African cultural heritage.
The bas-relief bronzes were taken from the royal palace of Kingdom of Benin in what is now southern Nigeria in 1897 by a British colonial expedition together with a sizable number of other artifacts.
Germany has taken the lead in correcting the wrongs of the past.
Many of Berlin's institutions are governed by Prussian Cultural Heritage Foundation, which declared last year that it was starting official talks to restore items to its collection.
And for more news around the world, Islam Sid takes us in a tour. Let's follow.
Thousands of people set off on foot from southern Mexico early Friday morning, heading to the United States borders after the deaths of at least 53 migrants in Texas this week. The caravan, which includes young men from Central America, Venezuela and Cuba, expressed sympathy, with some saying they were walking to avoid the danger of taking other modes of transportation.
Australia and France opened a new chapter in their relations as the new Australian Prime Minister seeks to heal wounds from a secret submarine contract that enraged France. Macron appeared to be ready to move on, saying that he'll speak about the future. It is worth noting that Albanese's Labour Party government announced it had agreed to pay France's naval group a $583 million settlements for breaking the contract.
Ecuador's government reduced fuel prices as part of a deal that ended more than 2 weeks of disruptive protests paralyzing the country. The reduction came after thousands of indigenous protesters left the capital, Quito, on Thursday evening after their leaders signed the agreement with the government to end 18 days of cost of living demonstrations.
More than 340,000 pilgrims from several nationalities have arrived in Medina through air and land crossings to perform this year's Hajj, which is the first pilgrims gathering since the start of the pandemic due to the international restrictions.
Back to Algeria now. This Friday, July 1st, Algeria has recovered after 2 last brilliant days at the Oran 2022 Mediterranean Games, with 15 medals, making the total number of medals reached 37 medals. Mariam Zian in the following report.
This Friday at the stadium of Miloud Hetfi Olympic Complex in Oran, the finals of boxing were held, being another fruitful day for Algeria. As 10 finals were played by Algerian athletes, female boxing players distinguished themselves with a full domination. The competition resulted with 4 golden medals and 1 silver in different weights, while men were satisfied with 1 gold medal and 4 silver ones.
I dedicate my win to the supporters present here, who really supported us to the last minute.
The outstandingly wide presence of people to support their athletes was the #1 contributor for Algeria to reap the maximum of medals. and reach 15 golden ones, not to mention the excellent preparation and performance of our athletes.
As you can see, boxing is not easy. We did not earn the medal easily. After many rounds with world champions and Europeans from Albania, Croatia and Montenegro, as well as Africa's champion, the competition was intense, but thank God we earned the first place, thanks to our efforts and preparation.
In athletics, Algeria is still witnessing noticeable results as the high jumping Bilal Afi earned one more golden medal and another bronze one in the same discipline. In addition to Abdelmalik Loulou, who recorded another Algerian presence in the 400 meters hurdles race to enhance the total number of medals and maintain the third place with 37 medals.
Thanks God for this result, in which I broke my personal record and qualified to Islamic Games. Thanks God we worked hard and earned our results. I said it and I repeat it, 50% of my energy comes from the supporters.
This year marks Algeria's first time to win 10 golden medals since 2002 Mediterranean Games in Tunisia, and is willing to maximize and enhance the number of its medals to an unprecedented record.
Well, that's all we have for now. But before we go, here's a reminder of our top stories for today. Libya's parliament in Tobruk was stormed by protesters demonstrating against deteriorating living conditions and political deadlock. Just as a day after Moscow withdrew its forces from Snake Island, Ukraine accused Russia on Friday of firing phosphorus bombs on the rocky outcrop in the Black Sea. At least 10 protesters were killed and a dozen others injured when security forces used force against protesters in Omdurman, Sudan, according to the Central Committee of the Sudanese Doctors. You also watched in our news, the Korean Confederation of Trade Unions held a mass gathering in the capital Seoul on Saturday to demand improved labor policies and an increased minimum wage. Well, that's it for today. This is Karim Zachary signing off. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.